So hello, my name is Miss Lynn Fu. I'm a wildlife refuge manager, and I manage 8 national wildlife refuges in this area and in Cape Cod. So has anybody ever been to Assabet River National Wildlife Refuge? Raise your hand if you have. Have you been? Have you been to Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge? You went there for school, for your field trip, where you had that big tower. And then Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge. That's in Devens and Shirley, Harvard area, near the Fruitlands Museum. So those are the refuges that are in this area that you can visit. They have lots of different trails, and there's a visitor center that currently isn't open yet, but it hopefully will be once this pandemic passes. But there's lots of different things you can do there, and we have ADA accessible fishing piers and hiking trails that you can enjoy. So today I'm going to talk to you about wildlife. So before we start, does anybody know what wildlife is? What do you think, Jasper?
Like animals that live in the wild.
Yeah, so let's say, is a pet dog wildlife? No. Is a cow on a farm wildlife? No. Is your kitty cat wildlife? What about a bear? Is that wildlife? So wildlife means that it's an animal that is not taken care of by humans. And when I say taken care of, I mean like fed, taken for walks, brought to the vet by humans. So they live on their own. And it's really important that you leave them alone and give them space so that they can thrive. Because a lot of times if you get too close or if you do too much or you try to pick them up, they get really stressed out and scared, and sometimes that really hurts them or kills them. So it's really important to give them space. So today we're going to talk about a couple groups of wildlife. And I guess I will start with birds. Who here likes birds? Raise your hand. I love birds. I don't know that much about them, but I love birds. And I heard, Jasper, you're a bird expert, aren't you? Awesome. So what are some characteristics that all birds have? What do you think? Yep, all birds have feathers, and so you can see the 4 examples on this table are birds with feathers. What else do all birds have? Beaks. Very good. Aurora, do birds give birth to live animals, or do they lay eggs? Yep, so all birds lay eggs. And then there's one characteristic that might not be very obvious. All birds have hollow bones. Now, why do you think that's important? What do you think, Jasper?
It makes them lighter so that
Yeah, but do all birds fly? No. Give me an example of a bird that does not fly. What do you think, Forrest? An ostrich. It does not fly. It's adapted. It gets so big that it's adapted to just run really fast. What other birds don't fly? Aurora? Yeah. What does it do instead? It walks. Does it swim? So its swimming motion is actually like flying through the water, isn't it? So they've become adapted to swimming instead of flying. And so all these adaptations, these are things that they do to change over time to be successful. So there are different kinds of birds, and it's based on what they eat. So if an animal only eats meat, do you know what that's called? Carnivore. Very good, a carnivore. Good job, Aaron. And if it only eats plants, what is it called? Go ahead, Jasper. An herbivore, right? And what if it eats both? An omnivore. And you can tell what type of animal it might be based on its characteristics. So let's look at this great horned owl, for example. This owl, what do you see? What are some characteristics you see about this owl? What do you think?
sharp talons.
Sharp talons. What else do you see about it?
Sharp
Sharp
beak.
beak. Anything else that might make it a really good carnivore? Predator? What do you think, Forrest? Yeah, this owl is really cool. It can turn its head all the way around. And Junie, you're pointing to something. Where are you pointing to? eyes. It has amazing sight. And these little tufts, it has great hearing too, so it's a great nighttime hunter. And so everything about this owl makes it a great predator, and so it is a carnivore. So what about these guys? What are these? What do you think? What do you think? Ducks, yeah, these are mallards. And so what do you think these guys eat? Does anybody have a guess? They can eat small little fish, but what else? Bugs. If you look really close inside their mouth, they have these little like ridges that it's like a strainer. So they eat a lot of aquatic plants. They strain the water for aquatic plants. So if they eat both insects and plants, what are these mallards? They are omnivores. They eat both. What else do you think, what other characteristics about this gives away a detail about its life? Do you think these live in the woods? Do they live in the grasslands, in the water? What do you think? In the water, how do you know it lives in the water? It's webbed feet, yes. And what's really cool about these ducks is they have these special wings that repel water so that when they're on the water just actually beads right off of it. So it's really amazing. It's really fascinating. So this is an omnivore, and it is an aquatic duck. Now, what about this guy? Do you think this red-tailed hawk, it's an omnivore, herbivore, or carnivore? Carnivore. Why do you think so? Yep, sharp beak. What are these? What are these things? The talons, sharp talons. Yep, and he has really great eyesight. That's right. And this is an American kestrel. It has the exact same characteristics, except it's just a little smaller. So these guys will hunt mice and little smaller animals and mammals in the wild. So they have sharp talons and beak and great eyesight. So those are birds. Now, the next group of animals we're going to talk about is mammals. I'm going to show you some examples of mammals. There's a bunch of mammals there. This is a mammal. This is a black bear. This is a mammal. It is a river otter. This is a mammal. This is a pelt of a coyote, and this is a bobcat. What characteristics do all mammals have in common? Fur. Very good. What do you think?
They all they all give birth to their babies. They don't have eggs.
Yep, they give live birth. Very good. What else? What else do you think? What do you think, Forrest? All mammals also, the mothers feed the babies milk. So, and the one thing about mammals, and that's different from other groups of mammals that we'll talk about later, is it's also warm-blooded. Does anybody shiver? When you get cold, do you shiver? That's your body, well, I do. That's your body's way of keeping warm. So all mammals are warm-blooded, which means it can create its own body heat. So when you run, are you sweating? You sweat and you shiver. That's your body's way of creating heat. So there's another group of animals we're going to talk about that can't do that, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. So what do you think? So do you think there's going to be both omnivores, carnivores, and herbivores for mammals as well? Yeah? Okay, so let's talk about this bobcat. What do you think? Do you think this bobcat is an omnivore, herbivore, or carnivore? Carnivore! It eats a lot of little animals like squirrels and chipmunks and mice. So it's a great predator to help keep those populations of animals down. But it's also very opportunistic. So sometimes they'll find dead animals called carrion, and they'll eat that on the roads. And sometimes you'll see it eating like fruits and stuff just to supplement. But it's mostly a carnivore. So what else? What do you think about the animal that shows you it's a carnivore? What do you think? What characteristics? Teeth. Is it sharp? Is it sharp teeth? Piper, what do you think? Look at its paws. What do you see on its paws? Sharp claws. Do you think sharp claws would help it hunt? Yeah, sharp claws. It has really good eyesight and really good smell too. So this is a pelt of a coyote. Has anybody seen a coyote before? Have you heard it? Yipping around? We have lots of different coyotes and packs around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around, and you can, if you want to come up here a little bit closer, you're welcome to come and touch it with 2 fingers. And now, I guess my question is, why do you think mammals have fur? Is it soft? Yeah, do you think it would keep it warm? Do you think it would keep it warm in the wintertime? Yeah, so the fur helps protect it and keeps it warm, right? Cool, thanks. So this is a coyote. Do you think this is pretty big? Yeah, it's about the size of a dog, isn't it? And this is an omnivore as well. It eats all sorts of different foods. It will... Yeah. All right, so what about this guy over here? This is a river otter. What do you think? Omnivore, carnivore, or herbivore? What do you think, Jasper? It eats fish, it eats snails and clams and worms. What else do you think it eats? So it's mostly a carnivore, but it will supplement with different plant materials when it really needs to. So this is a river otter. And now, does it look like other mammals you see in the water? What else might look like it? Come on down. Come on and sit down. Come on in and sit down. Has anybody seen a beaver before? Yeah, what's the big difference between a beaver and an otter? I'll give you a hint. What do you think? What do you think, Jasper?
Their tails aren't big and flat.
Yeah, beavers have big flat tails, and that's one big characteristic that's different between them. Very good. All right, what else should we talk about? And so what we have here is a touch table. So after the program, you're welcome to come up to this table here with 2 fingers, and you're welcome to touch and feel the fur of these different mammals and see if they're soft, if they're warm, and explore that. So the next group of animals we're going to talk about is a group of animals that are cold-blooded. And so, do you remember what do you think cold-blooded means? Junie, what do you think? It cannot make its own body heat, so it relies on external temperatures, like in the environment, to regulate it. So when it's cold, do you think it runs around a lot in the cold? No, there's no energy, so it hibernates or estivates. But if it's warm, then it has the energy. So the first group of animals I'm going to talk about is amphibians. And so amphi means 2. And amphibians means an animal that both lives in the water and on land. And so, Junie, I'm going to have you come up here and help me. And you can walk this around. So this is my daughter, Juniper, and she's going to help me. This is an American toad, and this is a type of frog species. And so with frogs, I'm going to sit over here so I can get close to you. So there's toads, and then there's frogs. Frogs have smooth skin, and toads have bumpy skin. And so here, like when Juniper walks this toad around, there's going to be 2 bumps right behind its ears, or its eyes, and that's called the paratoid gland. And that's its defense mechanism, because in the paratoid gland is poison. So if, let's say, a fox bites it, and he goes, ugh, yuck, poison, what do you think will happen? Do you think it'll eat it if it's not tasty because there's poison in it?
I think they'll die.
Well, yeah, some animals might die, but mostly they'll just be like, yuck, and they'll spit it out. So that's his defense mechanism, so animals won't eat it. And then there's different sizes, right? So this American toad here is probably a couple years old. How do you think it gets away from animals trying to eat it? What do you think? Look at its long legs, big, long, strong legs. Do you think it jumps? Yeah, toads are jumpers, and so are frogs. And now toads are pretty cool because they help eat all sorts of insects, especially mosquitoes that bite us and make us all itchy. So these are all types of amphibians you'll find in your backyard. So what I'm going to do for this next one, I'm going to take it out of the box. So I'm going to wet my hands because you don't want to damage its skin. So I have rainwater in that container, and I collected it so that I can hold it. So the next group are also amphibians, and what I'll do is I'll open up the lid so you can see it. So it looks like a snake, but it has really slimy skin, and you'll see its little legs. You see its little legs? And so this is a red back salamander, but you notice, is the back red? No. You see the little legs walking? So this is the lead phase of a red back salamander. And these can be found in wet woods. And they lay their eggs underneath tree stumps. And they have, so they have moist skin. Do you see how wet their skin is and how shiny it is? So there it is. And you see its tail? You see its tail looks like it's missing. That's one of its defense mechanisms. So when there's an animal trying to eat it, it'll detach its tail and grow a new one. So the tail will continue to wiggle, and that'll be a good distraction for it to get away. Yeah, let's get the other one out. So here is an example of, so this is a redback salamander, and this guy's a little bit jumpy. So let's see. So do you see why it's called a redback salamander? Because it has a red back. So these are the same species, they're just different colors. So this is a redback salamander, and this is a little bit older. And you see how it has a long tail, and see how this one detached its tail so it's shorter? So it's like super slimy. And the other thing is, sometimes they'll have an ability to like let out a little bit of slime. Do you want to come over and take a look at the salamanders? Yeah, come on over. Salamanders can be found in the woods and usually under wet logs, under leaves, after it rains. And if you're if you look really carefully, you might see it crossing the trail. Yeah, that'd be great. You'll see it crossing the trail. So just keep your eyes open for it, okay? Cool. So you want to see something else? You want to learn about the next group of animals? Yeah. Okay, so the next group of animals are reptiles. And they are also amphibians. So you can put them back? Thank you.
Or are they tortoises?
So, that's a good question. Do you know the difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Tortoises don't go in water, and turtles do.
Oh, you're so smart. That's correct. Let me go wash my hands again, okay? Wait. Let's go dip our hands in the pond water, or in the rainwater. Make sure we rinse it off. So, turtles are also cold-blooded animals. They are types of reptiles. And a characteristic of reptiles is, one, they're cold-blooded, and two, they lay eggs. So who's seen a turtle before? Raise your hand if you've seen a turtle.
Yeah.
Yes? Where have you seen turtles?
I saw some at the Arboretum.
At the Arboretum? Cool. So these are baby Blanding's turtle. They were laid in the springtime at our refuge, and they are state listed. So we're trying really hard to protect the population. What we do is we'll follow the females. We know usually when they come out to lay their eggs. We follow the females, and then when she lays her eggs, we put a metal cage over it and protect the eggs so that raccoons and other predators won't eat it. And then we count the days until they hatch, usually about 60 days, and we come back and we collect the eggs, we put them in our lab, and we hatch them out. So we have several hundred right now that we are hatching out. And we have a program where we either head start them at school, so we'll give schools that participate in our program 2 turtles, and they will raise them through the winter time. And by the next spring, they're about this big, and then we release them. And it gives them a better chance of survival. Because a lot of times, Blandings will lay anywhere up to 16 eggs, and then there's only about a 5% survival in the wild, which means a lot of the eggs get eaten. But right now, this might be a little tasty morsel for a heron, a hawk, but once they get bigger and their shells are harder, they won't get eaten as much. So that, the head starting program gives them a head start in life. And so a lot of times we will collect a certain number of egg nests, and then we will hatch them out, and some will do a direct release back into our refuge, and others we will have schools participate in the head starting program. So these are going to be a few that are going into our program. So what do you think? Super cute? And so each of these guys, you see there's a little notch on it. So we notch them. It's the edge of their carapace. It's kind of like a nail, and so we notch it, so that's a special numbering system. So when you go through, these are the ones, the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands. And they'll be 1, 3, 5, and 7. And so a combination of this gives it a number up to 9.
Oh, interesting.
So we can go up to 9,999 based on the natch pattern.
So this is the blanding.
This is a blandings turtle, a juvenile blandings turtle. Hatchlings, these are hatchlings. And you can still see the little egg yolk pouch where it came out. Blandings turtles. Now, if you see a turtle out in the woods, should you pick it up and bring it home and play with it and keep it as a pet? No, because they have their home, right? They need to live out in the wild so they can have their freedom. They won't be poisonous, but they might have salmonella, which might, give you a bellyache if you touch the turtle and then lick your fingers. So definitely wash your hands if you do touch one, but I recommend just giving it space and not touching it. So, blandings turtles. So what are these again? What kind of animals? Are they birds, mammals, reptiles, or amphibians? Reptiles, really good. So now the very last group of animals we're going to find is one of the groups with the largest types, largest number of species. Does anybody have a guess of what kind of animal it might be? No? Okay, let me go clean my hands really quick. It is insects. Insects are a group of animals that have lots and lots and lots of species. So go ahead and show it. And so what you see here in that is a Monarch Caterpillar. So that is a Monarch Caterpillar. This is what it looks like. It's a bigger example. It can get up to this big. And what happens is the butterfly, this is a monarch butterfly, it'll lay its eggs, and that's a milkweed plant. It'll lay its egg on a milkweed plant that looks like this, and then it'll hatch out into little caterpillars. So after it eats and gets big enough, it turns into a chrysalis, and that's when it metamorphosizes and comes out as a butterfly. And now why are butterflies and bees so important? Does anybody know why? They're part of a group of animals called pollinators, and pollinators help make fruits and vegetables for us.
Honey.
Yeah, so it's really important to protect bees and other insects, right? And they're all part of the food cycle, so we might not eat them, but other animals will eat them, and then it'll benefit other animals, right? So that's the end of the program. What do you think? So these are all different types of animals that are in your backyard. So next time you go for a walk, keep your eyes out and see what kind of animals you see. Okay?